Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Inside Track, Equibase's weekly handicapping podcast, where we give our analysis, picks, and wagers for a couple of the weekend's top races. I'm your host, Ben Kudla with Equibase. I'm joined today by a very special guest, Peter T. Fornatale from In the Money Media Network. He's an Eclipse Award winner, so very excited to have you on the show, and welcome, Pete.
I'm very proud of that Eclipse Award, but possibly prouder still, I think you can see them back there on the shelf, of the awards I won through your sister company, America's Best Racing, a couple of years ago, was doing a Fans' Choice Best Podcast Award, which JK and I from In the Money Media took down 2 years in a row before they stopped doing the award. I guess they got tired of giving it to us, but it's great to be here. Really appreciate it. I've been enjoying the work that you do, the enthusiasm you bring to this, and always fun to work with the Equibase team.
Oh, well, thank you for the kind words. And be sure to check out In the Money Media Network. They have a fantastic In the Money Players podcast, as well as a really cool YouTube channel at In the Money Media Network. So you can check them out, hit that like and subscribe button. I promise you will not be disappointed. Very insightful. So please go and check them out. Friendly reminder, this Saturday is another free race to the NHC feeder contest on horseplayers.com. This is a weekly contest every Saturday, and anybody can join at any time to try to win a seat to NHC 2025 in Vegas. So the top two finishers in each of these weekly feeder contests will make it to the Raceland's Final 50 on February 22nd, and the top two finishers from the Raceland's Final 50 will win a seat to NHC 2025 in Vegas. So just a reminder, you must be an active Raceland subscriber to play, and you can find all details for that at equibase.com/NHC. So let's move right on. Another fantastic show we've got. We've got handicapping the Grade 2 Sands Point Stakes at Belmont at the Big A, the Grade 2 Franklin Stakes, and the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth Challenge Cup Series Stakes at Keeneland. So all turf races, all fillies and mares, and let's just dive right into this Grade 2 Sands Point Stakes, going a mile and an eighth on the inner turf for 3-year-old fillies. Last year's winner was Eternal Oak for Charlie Appleby with Jamie Spencer aboard. Got a field of 7 here, plus 2 main track only also eligibles. However, it is supposed to be a gorgeous weekend of weather in New York, so I doubt they will get in. However, what are your thoughts? I'm excited to hear your picks here.
Yeah, crossing the fingers, but it does seem like we're going to be A-okay on the weather this weekend, which is great. You know, when I first took a look at this race, you see the short field. I was trying to come up with a pace angle that, and this is not a horse that I ended up picking for folks who are, I know sometimes folks scribble along and sometimes you can get yourself into trouble. The first horse you mention becomes your pick. That's not the case with me and Makanga, but I thought this was a horse that we needed to talk about just because I do think she'll be out there winging. She's been laying down some really impressive pace figures, but I was thinking that there's enough class in behind her and enough tactical ability of some of these horses in behind that maybe we will see the pop and stop routine that we've seen from Makanga as opposed to just being completely loose on the lead. I want to keep her on my radar. If the price, we did this before morning lines were out. I haven't updated to see if they're in yet. If the price got big enough, of course I would reconsider, but I didn't want to make my top selection. I was going to look in a different direction, and the direction I wanted to go here was Style Points. And this is a horse, 3-year-old filly, improving late in the year. There's always some fun, different angles you can use when you're handicapping these 3-year-old races late in the year, and you try to put yourself in the minds of connections and what these horses need to do. The purpose, yes, it's to win races, but sometimes it's also a simple graded placing can just increase their residual value so much. It's a lens I like to take to these races. Style Points, to me, looks ready to break through potentially with a win at the graded level. This one is already graded stakes placed a couple of times, but I was just thinking that she's improving late in the 3-year-old year. I like the last race from Colonial in that listed stakes race that was pretty salty. I mean, very comparable. Not a huge up in class here, I wouldn't say. I think we're going to get a chance to look at some of the tape on that one here with Style Points, who in the end is going to dead heat with Deep Satin. But this was a nice finish. And what I really liked about this run from Style Points is looking at pace figures, which you can look at through your Equibase PPs, your Race Lens PPs, showed more early speed early, then sort of idled in the middle of the race. And then here, as you see in the stretch, really finishes impressively and puts up a solid late pace figure as well. And what that tells me is, as good as this race was, I mean, being, what was it, several lengths clear of the third place finisher,
Yeah.
as good as it looked, as good as the figure came back, when they kind of make two moves like that with the bigger early pace figures early and then a good late pace figure late, just suggests to me a horse that might even have more in the locker, as the Brits say, and maybe with a truly efficient run through can improve that final time. And if she does, it's going to be tough, I think, for some of the competition here. And I expect she's going to be an okay price. I'm a big fan of these sons and daughters of Oscar Performance. Sire, I've been following from the get-go, our partnership with Mill Ridge, but also just because I always thought Oscar Performance was such an interesting prospect himself, with winning grade ones at 2, 3, 4, and 5, and doing well off Lasix. Always a horse I'm interested in seeing what his progeny do. And Style Points, to me, looks like one who might be ready to step up and take her game to the next level. Could be pace compromised here potentially, but I'm hoping we'll be able to be in touch and take over for Makanga on the far turn, and hopefully do some good things in the stretch at Belmont at the Big A on Saturday.
I love it. I love how Joel Rosario's back up too. He already had a win on her on that allowance, 110,000. He gets the amount up today on Saturday. I mean, and yeah, Christophe Clement and graded stakes on the turf. I mean, it's hard to.
He's been flying. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's insane what his stakes numbers are in the last, gosh, what is it, 45 or 60 days?
Yeah, I want to say he's at like 30%. I could be wrong on that, but it's around that figure. But yeah, I agree with everything you say. I'm going to go a little different route. We might even be kind of comparable on the morning line odds here. I still haven't gotten them out as well, but I really like Spaladay here. I'm hoping to get a decent price, maybe 3-1 or more, but a little more than Ready Philly. Bought for $350K for the Chad Brown stable with Manny Franco aboard. I mean, hopefully we'll get a good price, but she's coming off a nice effort in that grade 2 Lake Placid Stakes at Saratoga in mid-August, where she finished 4th by a length and a half and ran a career best 102 echo-based speed figure. On the last 3 years, Chad Brown wins at 22% in turf route graded stakes with horses who ran their best speed figure last time out, 67 for 299. On the past 6 months, Chad Brown's winning at 25% in turf route graded stakes races altogether. Here's my favorite stat. In the last 3 years, Chad Brown, Manny Franco, and turf route graded stakes races at Aqueduct, aka Belmont at the Big A, won at 23% together and 92% in the money. 3 wins from 13 starts and 12 in the money. That's 12 different horses as well.
Yeah, I'm told 92%.
Yeah, that's nuts. She's 1-for-1 on this Aqueduct turf course where she broke her maiden here in May. Another interesting stat, because I was really looking at that 7-horse, Just and I. So Beautiful Love finished 6th in that grade 2 Lake Placid, which was Spaladay's last start, where she finished 4th. Beautiful Love came right back to win that grade 3 Jockey Club Oaks Invitational over Just and I in mid-September at BAQ. Definitely have to take that into consideration. She's ranked 2nd here in late pace rating with a 113.5 and also 2nd in average speed with an 89. She seems to be getting better as well. She has 3 consecutive improving echo-based speed figures, and another great stat. Since 1991, Chad Brown wins at 30% when starting a horse with 3 consecutive echo-based speed figures. So 88 wins from 293 starts and 62% in the money as well. So I hope this filly doesn't dip below 2-1. Might not be worth the bet if it does, but I do believe that she is the clear winner here for me.
I hear you. That she was on my short list. The reason I went with Style Points over her was twofold. One, guessing maybe Style Points would be a better price, and also just thinking that Spaladay might have too much work to do. But I could also see a scenario where Makanga goes inefficiently fast early, and it actually sets up for one coming deeper off the pace. So I would want Spaladay too in multi-race wagers. I did pull that number on Clement. 11 stakes races he's won since September 2nd. Ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. Oh, he's on fire. Good for him. He's a great trainer and just a solid dude. And no, you'll have to see it. You'll have to see it. All right, well, there you have it. I'm going with Spaladay, and Pete is going with Style Points. So let's just move on to the echo-based feature race of the week. The Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup Stakes at Keeneland. Going a mile and 1/8 in the turf for 3-year-old fillies. Last year's winner was Maj. for trainer Saeed bin Saror with Oseen Murray aboard, who went on to run second in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Some stat lines for you. Only 11 horses have run in the Queen Elizabeth before running in the Breeders' Cup Mile since 1991. There's only been one winner, which was Uni in 2019, and just 3 in the money, including Maj. But anyway, the competitive field of 10 here. I think we're a little bit different on this one, so I'm excited to hear your pick.
Well, this is not the most likely winner, but this is a horse I want to key my wagers around. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here with Buku. So Buku is a filly I've always liked. She was one of the talking horses at Breeders' Cup last year, just in terms of how well she was looking in her flesh in the morning, how well she was training coming into that. She is a horse for course lover. So many turf courses really are terrific when it comes to certain horses just will step up over them, whether it's the configuration of the bends or the composition of the soil under the grass or whatever it is. But Buku has a terrific record when it comes to this Keeneland turf course. But I guess the biggest thing that I like about her is I just think her form has been really darkened by these recent races. Now, somebody might look at this and just be like, look, she hasn't trained on, you're in the corner eating paste. What are you talking about here? But if you look through her races, I feel like I can make an excuse for, I don't know, the last 4. And I think we do have some. Do we have some tape on the Del Mar?
We do.
So the thing about this was the course. It was just very hard to make up ground on the turf at Del Mar. So this race, and you're just going to see Buku here, the 7 runner, coming from far back in the lane, just sort of sticking on, not making any kind of visually arresting move, but just to stick on and get within a couple of lengths or 3 or 4 lengths of the leaders here in the end, represented a closing effort the way that Del Mar turf course was playing. And you can see it. It's funny. It's hard to see even in the tape. You see it more looking at the chart. It's one of those funny things. But
that is true.
I was absolutely willing to forgive that based on the way that course was playing. And then you go back, and depending on what kind of metrics you use, one metric I'll use sometimes is the numbers from racingflow.com, which are a representation of how hard or easy it is to close into certain race shapes. And when you look at Buku through that lens, or even just through regular pace figures, you see a lot of situations that just don't favor horses with her closing running style. And my thought was that in this race, there could be enough pace to set it up for a closer. She's coming back to a course that she loves. And most important of all, Nick Tamaro's morning line guess of 15-1. I think that's probably about right. I think this one can run into a placing at least, and is one you do not want to leave out of your vertical wagers. And I'm not going to split the hair of saying, oh, she can only run underneath. I mean, I think if she runs, I think there's a chance she's going to run her best ever race. And if she does that, I think she can win. I can't get away from the race without talking about Soprano, who I like a lot. I mean, on the speed figure translations we get for In the Money Media, and we're going to have a lot of these when it comes to our Breeders' Cup coverage. If you sign up for inthemoneypodcast.com/plus, you pay $20. You get all our extra plus coverage for the month, including this time around. We're doing our whole Breeders' Cup package will be included in that. And one of my guys, known him for 20 years now, met him in person for the first time. I think he came over for the 2006 Breeders' Cup, but I'd known him online for several years longer than that. His name is Rob Dove. I always refer to him on the shows as one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today. He has a way of manipulating the speed figures they got over there and the race ratings from over there and coming up with a buyer style equivalent. And he's got Soprano running in the high 90s in that matron. I mean, if you saw a 98 buyer speed figure in the PP, I just think she'd be shorter than she's going to be. I mean, I think that's good form. Porta Fortuna is going to be one of the favorites for the Breeders' Cup Mile this year. Betting overseas right now, Porta Fortuna is as short as 3-1. She'd be odds on here. That to me means Soprano's going to definitely be one I want to keep on side. And, depending on how they bet, maybe even one to key around. But I was guessing that I'm going to find more value with Buku, and that's why I put her right on top in this spot. Exotics wise, I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face with number 3. She Feels Pretty either. She's very logical. She ticks a lot of boxes. It's just my own personal impression from watching her races that she doesn't really want to step over a mile. I could be wrong about that, but it makes
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah,
I really did. Yeah.
I don't want to lump on at a short number, even if she fits based on that. And also, if these figure equivalents that we're coming up with for these Euros are right, 90 ain't going to cut it anyway. So anyway, she'll be in the mix. Soprano will be in the mix, but Buku is who I want to key around. How did you see it?
I love it. Yeah, I love how you said horse for course. And, it's kind of like exactly like Kentucky Downs. Some horses love it; they can do really well, and some talented horses don't take to it. But yeah, Buku's 2 for 2 at Keeneland, so definitely not going to talk you off a 15-1 morning line. I'm also going to try to find a little bit of value here with Grayosh coming off a nice win in that Grade 2 Lake Placid Stakes at Saratoga, winning by neck over morning line favorite. And here She Feels Pretty, running your career best 104 equibase speed figure. Increasing speed figures in every start of her life. Chad Brown was at 37% when starting a horse with 4 consecutive equibase speed figures since 1991, 24 for 65 and 68% in the money. If you scratch off that race where she clipped heels and dumped Tyler Gaffalione in her second start of her life, she was only finished out of the money once. That was when she finished 4th in that Grade 2 Wonder Again Stakes by just 2 lengths. She did finish second by a nose a couple starts back in an allowance optional claiming race at Saratoga. To be fair, that would be closer to a list of stakes at a lot of other tracks besides Saratoga. But also that 3rd place finisher and the 8th place finisher both came back to win in their next start. So that's definitely puts more on that 2nd place finish there. Her pace ratings are phenomenal as well. Ranked first in this race with a middle pace rating of a 99.9, ranked second in late pace rating of a 111. And Chad Brown and Keeneland Turf Route and Graded Stakes is something you cannot ignore as well. Last 3 years, he went to 21% and 44% in the money with a positive ROI of 43%. The last 3 years, Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt went at 27% together and 50% in the money, 16 wins from 60 starts in turf graded stakes races. In the past 45 days, they're actually 3 of 8, 38% in route stakes races as well together. And final thing about this horse, so Flanagan Racing is the owner, and last week I said Chancellor McPatrick is a future Hall of Famer before he went on to win the Champagne Stakes. I got a lot of flack for that, but Flanagan Racing is our Equibase owner of the week, and so I was doing some reading on them, and Sean Flanagan, he was actually diagnosed with cancer in 2019. In 2020, he started to own racehorses as a lifelong dream. And so it's just hard to root against that, and I love it. And the fact that he bought this filly for $25K as a yearling. Absolutely love this horse at 8-1. Yeah, not going to talk me off it. So, and that last race, beating She Feels Pretty, that was a fantastic stretch run, and she just was up the middle there with She Feels Pretty on the outside, and she just dug on through to win. So, but yeah, like you said, She Feels Pretty. She checks all the boxes. You can't take her out of the running. But I thought another interesting horse here was that 10. Candela with a morning line of 9-2. Looks really sharp here coming from France with Ferran Giroux aboard. Her last 3 races were Grade 1 and Grade 2 and Grade 2. She finished 8th in that Grade 1, but just by 3 lengths. That's a field of 14 you get in those Euro races. Came back to run 3rd in that Grade 2 Mallarette by, again, only a couple lengths. Her last start, she finished 3rd in the Grade 2 Nanette. And again, just by a couple of lengths. So in her last 4 starts, she ran a 111, 113, 111, and 109. You can find those numbers on Racelines. You can't find them on the PPs, but she did run those Equibase speed figures. And she's ranked first in this race by average speed with a 104, and also ranked first as an average class with a 105. I don't know. I think on the outside, it's not really a big deal with these 2-turn turf races. And here's a little Racelines angle as well. Horses at Keeneland in their first start in North America win at 17% and 44% in the money in the last 2 meets. So just something else to keep in mind with those Euros. And of course, you got to take a look at Soprano if you're going to go with that angle as well. But to me, it's all Grayosh. That could be a nice $20 to win bet ticket for me.
Yeah, I hear you. And if I'm going to use She Feels Pretty in some of these exotics, Grayosh should probably be included as well. There was some part of me that wanted to see her do it again, but you make a lot of good points, and certainly is from all those stats you mentioned dictate, just in the right hands to keep improving with Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt teaming up. So I'll probably listen to you on that. Candle I get. I mean, I think Dove had her also in the mid 90s. So speed figure wise, very similar. I'm a little more concerned than you about the post and just about the suitability for racing. One thing that Soprano has that I love is runs around places like Leopardstown and York, the top quality European tracks that go left-handed. Those horses I'm almost always, not almost, most of the time, I'm going to say they can deal with the tighter left-handed turns. But when they've only gone right-handed or only gone straight, I do sometimes have questions. But I mean, hey, at the price Candle is going to be, I'm not going to try to talk you off or anything. But yeah, it's a fascinating race, always a good running. We talked about goals for the year and why horses end up here. This is sort of the last chance saloon for some of these who get a chance one more time to run against their own sex before the waters get a lot deeper when they have to take on their elders. So it's really a very meaningful race year in, year out, whether or not it ends up having any Breeders' Cup implications. And I suppose you could see an impressive winner here, maybe wheel back by modern standards in the mile, but I'm excited to see how it all plays out. Always a fun race, the QE2.
It is. Yeah, I'm so excited for Saturday. I love how we both picked some value. So Pete there with Buku, and I'm going with Grayosh. So let's move on to the final race we have on the show. The Grade 2 Franklin Stakes this Sunday at Keeneland, 5.5 furlongs on the turf for fillies and mares 3-year-olds and up. Last year's winner was Tony Ann for Phil Diamano with Flavian Pratt aboard. Also something to mention, Phil Diamano is just 2 wins away from a career 1,000 wins, so definitely something to watch. He's at 998 with one entry today, Thursday at Keeneland. We got a full field of 12 here, plus 4 also eligibles. A lot of really talented horses in here. We'll see, but I'm interested to see what you got.
I may regret this, but I'm going to try to beat Star of Mystery. I mean, she's an obvious favorite. She's not one to fade completely, certainly one for exotics. And, if you had some strong opinions in a longer pick bet, you don't want to get beat by her. I was just wondering, I know it's a big full field. I know it's a turf sprint, but I'm not sure if she's going to get the same exact kind of blazing pace setup that she got in the quick call. So I was going to try to beat her, taking something in the front of her. And the horse that I think has a really interesting shot to maybe lead these on a merry chase in this spot is a Maryland bred, number 5, Future Is Now. I really liked the last run. I really liked the run 2 back. And that was the one that I thought was the most interesting, the Caress, to look at, because it was just a case of wanting to pay attention to who the best speed was and how the trips turned out in this race. And in my view, the winner, who's the 4 in this race, I think, was the horse there's a horse here sitting the absolute pocket trip that ends up winning. That's Don't Look Back at all. Future Is Now has, at this point in the race, already shook off a couple of different pace rivals. And then Paco loses the whip late here, and she just continues to fight on gamely, ends up only 3rd. But having won that pace battle and losing the war to a perfect trip winner, just think that race was the one that was really interesting to talk about. You look at the race fractions and just the fact that she was anywhere near at the finish there. I'm not saying she would have won without losing the whip, but it didn't help, I don't think. Paco, I think, is better in the finish using his stick. He's not a pure hand ride at the finish guy, in my observations. I just think Future Is Now is a little bit better than the bare form suggests, and I think is going to have an opportunity in this spot to just prove the best speed and maybe can get the jump on these before Star of Mystery gets going. I mean, I think that's probably your exacta. I mean, there's other ways you can go in here, but I wanted to give a shout for Future Is Now, who I think will be a bettable price among the favorites, but there's other horses in here who have to take money, and I think Star of Mystery might get bet off the boards. And then the other factor with Star of Mystery is, look, Charlie Appleby's still a great trainer, but he has not had the kind of dominating year that he's had in the last few years. But I still feel like the market is betting these horses like they can't lose. Nick's 3-2 guess on the morning line would be fair value, but I still think there's a chance this one could be even money or shorter. And that would just be too short for me in a race where a few different things have to go right. Again, not a total fade, but I think there's far more value with Future Is Now. And that's how I'm going to go in this year's Franklin.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, actually, she's 4-1. So yeah, she's second choice there. Future is now with Paco Lopez aboard. I know what you're saying with Star of Mystery and 32. I don't think she'll stay there. Probably go off at 1-5. I hate to pick favorites. However, I think this is just a horse you can single and pick threes and pick fours. Started her career in England where she ran in 5 graded stakes races and ran in the money in 4 of them. Came over to the States to run that grade 1 Jaipur Stakes at Saratoga back in June. She finished third by 3 3/4 lengths to Cogburn, who broke the track record that day. And in that race, the first place finisher, third place finisher, fourth place finisher, and 7th place finisher all came back to win in their next start out. What a race that Jaipur was. In Star Mystery's next start, she won that grade 3 quick call stakes at Saratoga by a length and a half pretty easily. Horses ranked first in middle pace with a 101.5, first in late pace with a 119.5, best average class of a 105, best average speed of a 105. Charlie Appleby and Flavian Pratt in graded stakes races on the turf, enough said. Last year, 3 years, they win at 50% in graded stakes races and 83% in the money, 6 wins from 12 starts. The last 3 years, Charlie Appleby with all jockeys is winning at 34% in graded stakes races, 32 wins from 93 starts. The last 2 meets at Keeneland, Charlie Appleby wins at 33%, 3 wins from 9 starts, and 7 times in the money. It's always tough betting on a 3-1 morning line horse. However, horses are going to win regardless of their odds. Sometimes it just is what it is, but I definitely will try to get a big exacta here below. I really like this Don't Look Back at All with a morning line of 8-1. This horse is always there. She's finished first or second 12 times out of 14 starts and hasn't finished worse than second in her last 11 starts. 2 wins and 1 second at this 5.5 furlong distance as well. Coming off a second place finish in that grade 2 ladies turf. Ocean Club, who finished third that race, came back to win her next start in a grade 3 at Belmont at the Big A. That's a small sample size, but Christophe Clement wins at 25% and 50% in the money in graded stakes races at Keeneland in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, he wins at 21% in graded stakes turf sprints and 50% in the money. 6 wins from 28 starts and 14 in the money. Christophe Clement and Tyler Gaffleone are 71% in the money together in graded stakes races in the last 3 years. However, a 0% win percentage. So that's kind of interesting. So definitely a horse to play underneath instead of on top. And I think at 8-1, I think you should go off at higher odds. This could be a great play underneath. But yeah, just going to try to make some money. I mean, there's some really talented horses in here with morning lines of 15, 20-1, 30-1. Pandora's Gift there, the number 2. I think she can run a big race with a big price of 20-1. Cairo could get there as well. The morning line 21. That Phil D. Motto Elm Drive at 15-1 is not shy of running in the money as well in these graded stakes races. So to me, I think it's just kind of a part wheel Star of Mystery on top of a bunch. See if you can get 20, 30-1, 15-1 on the bottom. And I would just key Star of Mystery and your pick 3s and pick 4s to me.
It doesn't sound crazy. I mean, I will say, as good as all those Appleby numbers are, they were a lot better 6 months ago. I mean, it's scary to think of numbers being better than what you just cited, but look, that's not really a reason not to bet on her. If they go too fast, I mean, especially if Future Is Now goes too fast, it's just going to set up absolutely beautifully for her. So, and it's interesting. Neither of us, we both might be subtly fading the 3 roses for Deborah. She really did run okay in the Presque Isle race. And she certainly can run in the money here. But as far as the win end goes, I don't know. For me, she's just always been a little bit. Maybe the hype on her has exceeded what I've seen on the actual racetrack. Again, it's very dangerous to fade anything with Clement calling the shots, and Irad Ortiz can only be seen as a positive. But this is a horse who's been beaten at odds on a couple of times, and if she is in that 3-4-1 range, which I assume she will be, I'm okay. If you do want to use Star of Mystery, I'd be okay trying to play against her for at least under the second spot to try to eke out some value in the exact. I think your approach, if you're going to use Star of Mystery, is exactly right. But I do think there's a world in which Future Is Now could blitz this field. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Pete, so much for being on. This has just been so much fun. I had so much fun in our Twitter spaces for the Belmont as well. And I love your picks. So we'll see how we fare this weekend at Keeneland and Belmont at the Big A.
It's always more fun when you don't have this. I mean, sometimes on our shows we have good success when we have a lot of pick agreement, but it's always more fun to get the different perspectives. And yeah, I love working with you in the Twitter Spaces thing. Again, been enjoying the work here. Encourage folks who enjoy my act to check out more of it in the Money Players podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check out our website. Lots of free tips and analysis on there, inthemoneypodcast.com. And I appreciate before you gave a nice plug for our YouTube channel. We have a lot of exclusive content coming up over there, and it really helps us out if people subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel. But yeah, anytime you're hard up for a guest, you know who to call. I won't always be in this good of a mood. The Mets won't have always just advanced in the playoffs, but even if it's a sour day for baseball, I'm here for you.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you everybody so much for watching. Good luck this weekend on all your wagers, and we'll see you next week.